changed my life. Jeff changed my life, for those of you who might not know, by saying yes to the very first film I wrote and directed. Woo! Thank you, Jeff. And then Jeremy for taking on the daunting task of playing Bruce Springsteen. So.
All right, first up, there are many ways to skin a cat. From the acting point of view, some actors say, please only call me by my character's name. I don't have any relationship with you outside of I've had great experiences with guys that do that, So we all approach the work in different ways. And I was curious what your approach, not only to choosing what you're going to do next, but also your approach to the work itself. How you like to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when this came along, I'd sat down with Scott Cooper, and I'd been such a fan of his for a long time, and we spoke about a lot of things. We spoke about actors we like, we spoke about movies we like, but I had no idea about this film, but I was excited to do anything with Scott. And I read this script, and I think in the beginning, for me at least, you read a script, and the first time you look at it, you're just looking for a way in, just something to start with. And I found several things really interesting from the first read, and I felt like I could lend myself to it. One of those things was the sort of interest in the creative process, exactly sort of what we're talking about, and the focus on the creative process and the creation of Nebraska, the record. And the other was this man, dealing with a great deal of loneliness and having to persevere. And I felt like I could lend myself to that. But then I think to figure out Bruce, I was really lucky. I had so much material. I had so much to read. I had so much to listen to. So much was in the music. So much was in the performance of the music. I think when I felt closest to Bruce for the first time, it was when we were recording Nebraska in Nashville. And I was singing My Father's House for the 6th, 7th, 8th time. And that was really the first time I felt truly close to him. And I felt very lucky to have that kind of shared experience. I think if you're lucky enough to find a role where you can commit yourself to a skill, learn a new skill, and have that shared experience, that brings a tremendous amount of closeness. And then I just followed Scott. I followed the great actors that we have, in the film, and I just felt lucky we were all making the same movie, and that's not an accident. That's Scott.
Did you play guitar and sing? Was that something you did?
No, that was all brand new to me.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a gift. So by sort of beginning that process and committing myself to learning those new skills, and needing to, because in 6 months I knew I had to do these things, sort of become an obsessive, the way Bruce was. I think all those things helped.
Jeremy's one of those guys who can do everything. I wouldn't be surprised if I said to him, "Oh, do you tap dance?"
Well, I can tap dance for you, for sure.
Yeah. Next thing you know, it's like Fred Astaire.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, one of the themes in the movie, and that's what kind of my next question for you, are these different themes. One of them, and I can't remember where I heard this, it might have been an interview, it might be a line in the movie, I think it's a line in the movie, is that it's hard, and I've got it written down here somewhere, and I can't find it. It's hard to realize that people don't do what you want them to do, right? Is that in the movie? Is that one of the lines in the movie? Something like that. And then not only other people, but you yourself aren't doing things that you want to do. And that seems like how do we navigate that? You know,
Well, what's interesting is that takes place in the diner when they've had a day out, and young Haley's asleep, and Bruce says to Faye, essentially kind of their second but first big date, right? That sometimes people aren't who you want them to be.
Yeah, right.
And
we're not who we want to be either. Yourself, right? I mean,
absolutely.
You know, like,
and in particular, if you're Bruce Springsteen or Jeff Bridges or Jeremy White, people, when they meet you, we'll be honest, they bring a great deal already to the table. A lot of movies, you're a national treasure. So when people meet you, they bring all of that experience.
yeah, it's funny.
Jeremy's, following in your wake.
One of the other interesting things that popped into my head is Bruce is a great actor, man. Did you see him in Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yeah.
He's very, and you look at Tom Waits, man. He's primarily an actor that's developed this persona that he can. Dylan, all these guys.
You made a movie with Dylan.
Yeah, I mean
they're
great actors, these guys. And
when you were acting with Dylan in those scenes, Master Anonymous, was he connected to you?
Oh, well, let me tell you, Larry Charles.
Here I am acting opposite Bob.
This was Larry Charles' first movie. Larry Charles, who wrote it with Dylan, and he did the Curb, right?
Yeah.
And he says, "You're kind of the senior Thesbo here, Jeff. Why don't you go out with Bob and do some acting, jamming, teach Bob how to act." What am I going to do? So I got to spend a half a day pretending with Bob. And he was so. We're talking about different ways of skinning the cat, and maybe tell me if you've run into these kind of actors that are very open. My feeling is that we only have a little bit of time to get down and do our best work. Let's get to know each other really well so we can relax, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's some other actors that approach.
They want to have an independent sort of process.
Yeah, very different. There's all these different ways to do it. And Bob was so open and childlike, unlike I expected,
Do you think he was nervous or no?
No, man, he wasn't nervous at all. He was like an ancient child. He put himself down, and open, and it was wonderful. How did you find with Bruce, the fact that Bruce was
around?
Created in his one-man show, he kind of cops to it, doesn't he?
To what?
To being a persona that he created.
Yeah, being like a phony somewhere.
A phony,
Yeah.
phony. So that's acting, man. I mean,
Everybody's acting.
Yeah, everybody. That's right.
Yeah.
So tell me about your, how you jammed with him.
Yeah, I mean, we got together a couple times before we started filming, and I mean, he told me a story right from the jump that was kind of around what we're discussing, is like this idea of presence or lack thereof, or feeling like a pretender, or feeling outside of yourself, and feeling like you're sort of what's the quote? Not able to, that we were just mentioning, the Fae.
Sometimes you are who people.
Sometimes you are, and exactly that thing. He was outside of himself in this period of his life, and he was not seeing the man that he wanted to be. And that was like upon our first meeting, he shared this story with me about kind of that panic when he was driving across the country, feeling outside of himself, and that fear, and the fear that he would go on the rest of his life, kind of just being a witness to his own life. And that was something I grabbed onto very early, and kind of kept that idea close to me the whole time. But in the beginning, I mean, I had questions for him. I had questions about that time. I had questions, for Patty, his wife, and I found, her really, really helpful. But he, right from the beginning, was very, he was there for me, but also made it very clear, he wanted me to do my thing with this, in the same way that he wanted Scott, to make a Scott Cooper movie, with his story. I remember the first time he listened to my recordings of his music, he said, you know, you sound like me, but you don't sound just like me. You're making the song your own, and I want the whole process of making this film to feel that way. And that's what it was. I mean, I felt like he was like a guardian angel, kind of keeping us all on track, but was very hands-off by the time we got on set. He was on set very often, but he was very hands-off. He would just encourage me almost every evening. He would send me a message of kind of encouragement. So
I had an experience making a movie, and also in my life, and I'm wondering if this happened with you guys. I don't want to make it a big thing about me here. Let me see if I can try.
No, do it.
There was a movie called White Squall.
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, and it was about this terrible event that happened. It was a university, but it was on a sailing ship, and the sailing ship turned over in this, terrible accident, killed all these people. And I played the captain, and I got to hang with him in real life. And I asked him what it was like, and he said, "Well, for a week. I went around to all the kids' families who, they died, and I spent some time with each of them. And then we didn't speak at all for like 25, 30 years. And then when the movie was being made, Ridley invited some of these survivors to come on to the movie set and be our tech guys, And it was remarkable how they relived that whole thing, and it was so Balthazar Getty, the guy who actually, Balthazar was playing the guy at the wheel, right? And the guy who he was playing his father. And now and unlike in real life, they didn't have a big court scene where everything was figured out. No, it was all kind of just, because it was in international water, so there was no court thing. But we had a court thing in the movie, and the guy who played his father comes up to me and he says, "Joe, I'm going to do something. I don't know if it's okay." I said, "What is it?" He said, "I want to do something that my father never did." And I said, he says, "My father blamed me for sinking the ship. And I want to hug my son. Can I hug myself?" I said, "Well, you go talk to Ridley, and go ahead." And that courtroom was just filled, having the real people there. And it was kind of like the cherry on the sundae of the whole experience. They got to, relive it. And I understood that, Bruce has seen the film 12 times, 13 times. What is that? Just having him around on there, did the vibe permeate the whole space?
Well, Bruce is a very relaxed presence, but he's still Bruce Springsteen. And when he walks into a room like you, Jeremy, the molecules in the room change. But Bruce doesn't want them to change. So he would come to set and he would generally just kind of stay off to himself, but he would talk to the crew members. Sometimes I'd see him over at craft service. I didn't think he was going to come much at all because he was touring and incredibly busy. But I think it was a therapeutic for him in some way.
And then having him in the room when you're working, and I was listening to
much harder for Jeremy White.
Yeah, but I bet after a while, didn't it just like, no, this is the deal. It was a big blessing.
Yeah, I think in the first couple weeks, I was certainly had shaky legs, absolutely.
Well, because you were just finding your...
Yeah. But also with Bruce. But then over time, it became very normal to see him around. You get used to it. It becomes a comfort.
Yeah.
And then it becomes just that. There's so much permission in it. And that's not what I saw in the beginning because I was so in my own head and my own way and trying to figure things. Like my first week on any job, regardless of the man I'm playing being around, you're kind of just sorting everything out. But then, yes, I realized he was really giving me permission, Scott permission.
It's daunting to play Bruce Springsteen. It's daunting to make a movie about him because he's so beloved and so many people bring so much to it.
Yeah.
And they all want a different movie.
Yeah.
Born to Run, Born USA, the Jukebox Spectacle.
But to have him on there giving you his,
His blessing.
his blessing.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and be in the room,
most
just be in
incredible
the room.
partner, Jeff, I have to say.
Yeah, you were mentioning, playing those tunes. We did some, whose show did we,
Stephen Bruton?
no, who was the guy that let us use his audience and sit in on his show real quick?
Yes. Yes.
Famous country guy, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But how did you guys do your concerts? Was that?
Well, we brought in background, and some of the best background.
What do you mean you filled this? You filled the auditorium with extras? Oh my gosh! So it wasn't a real show. It wasn't a show.
No.
Wow.
Not like you and I when we made Crazy Heart, and we piggybacked Montgomery Gentry, and I forgot he just died recently.
Yeah.
That country singer.
Yeah.
And people didn't know that you and Colin were going to sing.
At halftime or
Right, so
something.
we
Yeah.
did
Oh
that on
God.
stage.
Oh.
But when Jeremy was performing, of course they all knew, and the E Street Band, one of whom is right here, who played Stephen Van Zandt.
I love it. You got Steven's vibe and the drummer, it felt very much like Max.
Yes. Yeah. So we had the background that we had.
Any AI? Did you have AI audience at all? Did you paint with AI a little bit? You did.
And Jeff and I had a discussion at dinner over something that is quite troubling. I forgot what's it called, Jeff?
ChatGPT. You got
No, that was
Suno is like the music version of Chat.
Sora?
No,
Suno.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but back to reality, Matt. So you paint it a
the
little bit.
background was.
I think it was probably more similar to the way you guys did things when we were like at the Stone Pony. I mean, that was like a 400 cap room, and we would fill it up.
And the energy,
Electric. I love the way you guys did Born in the USA. You just kicked it, man, so
well. Was in the very spot where Bruce, the E Street Band, recorded it in the power station in New York City.
All that stuff makes a difference.
Well, the environment, it's like having Bruce there to bless us. It's, getting to record at the Stone Pony, getting to be at the station there. I mean, it felt like religious ground as well,
And that song, Bruce says, is by far his hardest song to sing. And even
Which one was
Born in the USA.
Really?
It's a
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, Jeremy.
Energy wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's not singing as much as it's kind of shouting.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like so, and he, I recorded the song and it took me a couple hours and I felt like I needed to take naps in between. I was getting like headaches, migraines, and I lost my voice for about a week. And it was like a week before we started filming. I lost my voice for days, but then it came back and I loved the sound of it. It sounded just like Bruce. And I would sing Born in the USA, in the mornings and at night, just trying to, recapture that kind of
But
stuff.
I have to say, to be in that room where it took place, but also to have Bruce there watching. Because Bruce said to me, he says, Scott, it was the only time in my career where, when we recorded something for the first time, that we thought we captured lightning in a bottle. He said, it never happened again.
Oh, he said that. Yeah.
Born in the USA. Yeah.
Wow.
Which you then see.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I got down here, and this is kind of, I don't know if you, well, why not? I love it when it all comes together, when you got the right directing, the right writing, the right cinematography, and that's a whole thing. We could talk all evening about any of these topics. And casting. Casting is the most important thing of all. Not only the actors, but the DP, production director, all the teams that bring together. Because there's something called emergent behavior, where you've got all these different elements coming together and they make something else. It's completely surprising, you know. And that's what keeps bringing me back to the whole thing. And every once in a while, it doesn't happen all the, but you've got high expectations going in, and then those expectations are transcended, and you go, what happened?
Yeah.
That's what that happened with our movie.
Yeah, with Crazy Heart. Well, it's interesting. You know, I write with actors in mind, and, you know, and I wrote Crazy Heart with Jeff in mind. And I sent the screenplay off to Jeff. Weeks would go by. I didn't hear anything. Then I'm reading a book of interviews by the Coen brothers, and they said that they wrote The Big Lebowski for Jeff, and that they sent it off to Jeff, and it took Jeff 1 year to get back. And let me tell you, it took Jeff 1 year to get back to me.
Well, you know, I asked you, what's your approach? You know, how do you do it? And my thing, I'm such a lazy. I don't like to work. I really resist working as much as I possibly can. And I had this dream, and I made a painting of this dream. And the dream is I'm rowing down this river, and the river has these big whirlpools. And my task is to avoid the whirlpools and get down the river. But I'll look in the vortex of this whirlpool, there'll be a beautiful jewel in there. And I'll go, oh, that's amazing. Close, man. Look at this. And that's the owners, and the title of the painting is Jeff Makes a Decision. So I resist the something that just draws me, you know. And with this one, with Crazy Heart, I said, it's, you know, when the movies, and maybe you can relate to this, when the movie is still in dreamland, you know, I love music, I love to make music. I'm being offered a movie all about music, but if in the dream, you're safe. Once you realize it and you do it, you can fail. You can just flop and then act terrible. So I'm walking down the street and my buddy T-Bone is over that, and he says, hey, what about this Crazy Heart movie you want to do? And I said, oh man, I don't know, there's no music in it, Bone, you know. He says, well, that's the easy part. I said, what do you mean? He says, yeah, I'll do it if you'll do it. And so then that was too cool to tear down. And it's frightening to be, you must have been scared shitless going this way. Not playing any music, not singing.
Horrifying.
God.
But
it's
true what you're saying. I mean, I find there's so much sort of anxiety about that commitment all the time. But then I do find when you say yes, it's always like that. It's like one thing. It doesn't take a lot. It's like a lot of like thought and doubt and this and that, and then one thing happens. I remember for this, it was, you know, I wanted to work with Scott so badly. You know, he had offered it to me. I read it, and I was thinking about it not for a year, but for a couple of weeks. And I was thinking about it. I was talking to Scott. I was thinking about it. And, you know, I was talking to friends about it. I was like, I don't know how to play guitar. I don't know how to sing. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. And I talked to Scott again. He goes, you know, Bruce wants you to do this. And I go, oh, okay. When do we get going then? You know, it can happen just like that.
It struck me that had both of you passed, or one of you, the movie never would have happened because I didn't have a backup. I wrote with both of you in mind.
You kicked it so well, Jeremy.
Oh man.
Let's see what else is on here about, I've got thinking of themes. Let me tell you what I think the themes are, how they affected me, and then you guys can elaborate. Forgiveness. That really hit me.
Yeah.
Not only for other people, but for yourself. You know, this idea, and again, realizing that people aren't who you want them to be, and you're not who you want you to be a lot of times. And just to be with that, it's really challenging, but I think that's what we all are challenged.
Well, we all have essentially three lives. We have a public life, a private life, and then we have a secret life.
Oh, I love that. I heard you say that before. Yeah, I like that, man. Yeah.
nothing nefarious. It's just that's when you're alone.
Yeah.
Private life, you're with your wife or your kids, or public figures, or where you work, or people you deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's about that honesty of like, is the secret life your most honest version? Is your most honest version? And how can you bring that honesty closer to the surface, closer to your private life, closer to your public life, you know? And that's the process of Bruce making this music.
Yeah, but just as a fan of both of your work, even before I knew either one of you, you're able to bring that kind of secret life into your work. Otherwise, it wouldn't connect to people the way it does.
There's a fourth one that just came to mind. The fourth is that you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
You know, there's an aspect of yourself that you don't know
Yeah.
who that is, really. You're not privy to it, you know.
How much do both of you bring to each part of your life?
Well,
Does it matter?
that's where I start. I don't know about you, Jeremy, but you know, I look at I read the script. You know, all that stuff is in the script. You just look at it. You know what the guy's saying, and there are aspects of yourself that you might magnify or kick to the curb.
That's it. You're just like, what can I blow up?
Yeah,
What can I get
yeah,
quieter?
And then you look around for role models, right? And you've got, you know, this guy.
I had one.
You had one
Yeah.
right there. It's so wonderful to have a technical advisor is wonderful to have on the set, but you have, the man on the set that is so wonderful to have that.
Well, he's incredibly generous too. Bruce, with his time, he let us raid his archives, clothing, props.
And he must have got off on this too in a very
Well,
big way, many levels, you know.
I think, yeah. I mean, with some of my stuff, but I think most especially he was so touched getting to go back to his grandparents' home. You know, going back and seeing his pops in there, seeing Stephen Graham do what he did and Gabby do what she did. Yeah. And seeing him as a young man and seeing that home.
I've got so many questions on here. I don't know.
What else you got, Jeff?
Well, I'm just going on the themes again. Following your dream, this thing that, Bruce was obsessed about doing this Nebraska, album. The thing it also reminds me, and I feel this way a lot of times. I wonder if you guys do. You remember Dreyfus in Close Encounters building the Devil's Tower? There's no one. I gotta do it. I gotta, And it's that sweet spot as a creator when you're not doing it. It's doing you.
Yeah, and give yourself.
When that happens, and like when you were talking about that first couple of weeks, you're tight, and then finally, you surrendered.
Yes.
And it does you, and that's the sweet spot, man. And to get into that, and to how do you practice to get there and do it? You just keep showing up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I thought about control a lot because I think, especially during this period of time, and I mean, for his whole life really until now, Bruce has had so much control over his art, over, everything that's come out. I mean, John Landau and Bruce. But I thought about that kind of tightness often, holding on to something, and kind of what that brings. Does that bring something honest? Does that obsession always bring something honest? Or is that act of surrender ultimately what gets you to where you're going? And I think there are so many moments of surrender for Bruce in this film. And so surrender was, definitely a word I thought about.
How about you guys? Do you still have that, that kind of obsessive thing? Can you relate to that in your own work? I believe you can. I know you just...
Sadly, yes.
And it just grabs you and you can't let
From
go.
the moment that I write Fade In,
And so it's...
cry from my cold.
And it's kind of comforting and frightening all at the same time that
I only do things that scare me. Otherwise, why?
Interesting.
Otherwise, it's just a job, and you may ultimately...
What's this guy holding up a thing? 5 minutes? And unlike a lot of showbiz people, they wanted all their kids to go into showbiz, And I resisted just like I resist, making any decision, really. But I resisted, didn't want to be, the nepotism thing bugged me, and competing with my brother, didn't want to do that, so I resisted. And I was thinking about this the other day, it was so bizarre. This gets very personal. No, I might have been personal.
Yeah.
Very bizarre. I resented getting circumcised. I didn't ask for that. This is the way God planned it, and you're going to mess with it. And then I was very young, and my parents, they loved acting and showbiz, and then they pushed me there, man. And you see a little 8-year-old kid in Seahawks, that's me. My dad's saying, oh, you go to work with Dad, you get to play, you get some money, you buy some toys, come on. And so when I was a teenager, I'd say to my dad, yeah, acting's okay, but I like to paint, I like to play music, I like to do ceramics. Yeah, Jeff, you're going to get to do all that. You're a perfect example. You're going to get to play music. That's the wonderful thing about acting. And he's so right. But I have this funny, and I say it's funny because I thank my father for leading me in this path, because it's a beautiful path. But it's taken me away, to go for your question, all these other interests that I'm in. I like to create stuff, and acting is basically creating. You're a detective trying to figure out how to do this,
And having seen Jeff's work, whether it's painting, ceramics, music, photography, my God.
Well, I do this, so that's kind of what I do. I do other creative things when I'm not, and again, I'm very lazy and I don't practice all of these different things. And it's like, that's my giving myself the shit.
Are you talking about you getting to be a visitor in your work into these worlds, or this is you're like a visitor into these worlds for these roles, or these are all arts that you're interested in outside that you can bring to?
And I deal with them all in the same way, and that sweet spot is disappearing. Having it do you.
Yeah, like you're part of the door on the floor.
Have you ever experienced painting? You're painting and you're in the zone, and you go like, wow, look what happened. Just you're out of the thing.
Yeah.
I think Starkweather probably was something as he was riding Nebraska after he'd seen Badlands that maybe scared him a little bit, for sure, when you take on that persona. But when he was speaking to Faye, and I spoke to him about that, specifically that particular scene, which was a tough scene for Bruce, for me to write, for us to see him perform that scene. And he just said to me, Scott, I'd hurt too many people in my life, and I really loved Faye, and I didn't want to hurt her again. And I knew that if we continued with the relationship, that's ultimately what could happen. Because I hadn't done the work on myself. It wasn't until he got therapy, which he's still in, that he was able to have a loving relationship, which he's now had with Patty Scalpa for a long time. So I think it was more about his understanding how much he was hurting this particular woman. Thank you.
I have a question for Jeremy, to follow up to this question about what you do between your acting gigs, and then as kind of a two-parter. Then, you've had wonderful success fairly recently with The Bear. So that was a little bit of fame hitting you fast, similar to what Bruce did with when he
Born to Run, The River. I mean, The River was the most kind of. He thought that was it, that was top, and obviously Born in the USA would take him somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, it was just that concept of what we were talking about earlier. I think I thought very often about other people's ideas of you, your understanding of self, or lack thereof, And I think when I got some attention, for my work, and that attention got greater, I realized, there's all these kinds of ideas of self being put on me, and if you're not slick and you're not smart, you can really, you can start to believe those ideas, or if you're not prepared, you can really start to believe those ideas. And I think that Bruce was in a position where that wasn't the case. That's not what happened. But it was a risk and it was a fear, that he would lose his sense of self, that these ideas being thrown at him, these expectations of him, would have been too much. And that's certainly something that I can relate to. I mean, I've been doing this since I was like 14, 15 years old, and yeah, I think I've always had an awareness about, if you get to be successful at this, what comes with that is expectation, ideas, insecurity, doubt. And so in between my work, I'm similar to you. I don't like to do very much. I don't like to do very much at all. I really like to sit on my couch and watch movies, be with my kids, and that's what makes me.
What do you do between, you got kids and you're married, so that takes a lot of time and stuff. But I mean, do you have any hobbies?
I guess I guess I feel like a visitor on these things. So I think I felt very lucky to find and learn these new skills for work and have these shared experiences. I think for me, for such a long time, it was about chasing this thing and getting somewhere with this thing of acting. And now that I got here, so I don't know what else I got to do other than try to hang around as long as I can, I guess.
Well, I'm getting
You're getting
wrap.
Okay.
I think we're well beyond that.
I'm not going to ask you to answer any of these questions. I'm just going to tell you what I would have said. How was it to work with the other Jeremy? Did you have trouble with the names, two Jeremys? Don't answer any of this. What about your dad, man? I'm looking for his name here, man. Gosh, so cool, man. I told Scott, I said, who did you get to play his dad as an old man? It looks like somebody else. He says, no, that was the guy. Yeah, wow, I love that. And I wanted to go on and talk about your DP. Help me with his name.
Shot our commercial.
I know it. Gosh, he's so good. Oh, man. Oh, wonderful. And I can go in and talk to you guys for an hour, but we're getting out of here, man.
I have to tell you, this is the most refreshing. I've done a lot of Q&As. It's a hang. Jeff has told us things that I don't think he's ever told us.
Get it so
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.